I'm really grateful about that it's unbreakable.
Tonight, it's been 20 years since Jordan's principle was first created. His family came out to celebrate the anniversary.
It's an homage that we owe the Algonquin people, since we're on their unceded territory, to offer their students the opportunity to come here free of tuition.
A chance for free tuition for Algonquin students at the University of Ottawa. Why it's causing controversy.
I feel wonderful lucky. It took me 7 months to get a kidney, and I feel very lucky.
And 2 years after a kidney transplant, a Mi'kmaq youth gets his wish. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Pikangikum First Nation is suing the federal government for $2 billion. And the nation is seeking $200 million in emergency relief. As we reported yesterday, the nation in Northern Ontario has declared a state of emergency due to the critical state of its water and wastewater infrastructure. Daily water conservation measures have been in place for months to prevent the closure of important facilities like the school. Pikangikum First Nation is seeking $200 million from Canada in federal court as an interim measure to help it repair and maintain its water, sewage, and fire service systems. It's part of what is now a two-pronged legal battle to improve infrastructure in the community of more than 4,000 people. In a statement on Thursday, the chief said Canadians would be shocked by the conditions residents live in. The community wants the court to order Canada to pay damages in the amount of $2 billion, or such a sum as the court deems appropriate for its breaches, and an order compelling Canada to pay special damages in an amount to be determined. The community alleges Canada is in breach of its fiduciary, constitutionally mandated statutory, contractual, treaty, and common law duties by failing to give Pikangikum access to potable water, sewage disposal, and fire prevention. In a statement to APTN News, Indigenous Services Canada said the Government of Canada respects the choice of First Nations, including Pikangikum First Nation, to seek the court's assistance on the important issue of safe drinking water. It's been 20 years since Jordan's principle was first created in memory of 5-year-old Jordan River Anderson. The young boy passed away in 2005 after living in a Winnipeg hospital his entire life, waiting for the federal and provincial governments to agree on who should pay for his home health care. His family was in Winnipeg today, surrounded by supporters. Sav Jonesa has more.
In Winnipeg, supporters came out to bear witness to the 20th anniversary of Jordan's principle, named after the late Jordan River Anderson. Fuzzy mascots, blue teddy bears, and inflatable bouncy castles stood as reminders of the spirit of childhood. His father, Ernest, was emotional from the turnout.
And I'm really grateful about that it's unbreakable.
Jordan was born in 1999 with multiple disabilities. Though deemed fit to live in a home appropriate for his medical needs at age 2, Anderson instead spent the rest of his life in hospital while the federal and provincial governments fought over who should pay for his on-reserve, home-based health care. After years of waiting, Anderson died at age 5 before ever living with his family in Norway House, Cree Nation.
I want everybody to remember that Jordan was loved by his whole family. He had a mother, he had a father, he had 5 brothers and 6 sisters, and we all cared about him very much, and we all wanted him back home.
Soon after his passing, Jordan's principle was created in his memory so the needs of First Nations children would not be delayed by jurisdictional disputes again. His sister, Jerlene Sullivan, says his family is honored that his legacy is carried forward, and they will continue advocating for what Jordan's principle stands for.
We see Jordan's spirit everywhere in all these children that gathered here today, that we fight. That he is fighting from the spirit world. He is a spirit warrior, and that he is our hero, and that he fights for every First Nation child in Canada.
Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Standing Buffalo Dakota First Nation in Saskatchewan has filed a claim against the Crown. They seek justice for what they call centuries of systemic discrimination. Video journalist Rachel May spoke with two Dakota chiefs who say Canada must finally recognize their inherent and ongoing sovereignty.
We've seen the traumas of residential school. We've seen the oppressive legislation in the Indian Act, all the pieces of legislation that came to restrict and keep the Indian down and to some extent exterminate our people.
In July 2024, Canada apologized to the Dakota and Lakota people for wrongfully labeling them as refugees. Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations Gary Anandasangari issued multiple apologies last year, including to Inuit communities for the mass killing of over 1,000 sled dogs and to 5 Anishinaabe First Nations for financial harm caused by Crown mismanagement. The Dakota-Lakota apology included a promise to rebuild trust and to establish nation-to-nation relations. Standing Buffalo Dakota Chief Roger Redman says no meaningful action has followed the apology, and discriminatory practices continue, including the approval of capital projects on traditional lands. He says Standing Buffalo is challenging all permits and projects until the Crown honors its commitments.
We're not letting industry or government determine consultation for us. We determine that. So we have that consultation framework we presented to the province, and we gave them notice that any permits on major capital projects or rare source minerals, we will be filing a judicial review that to stop those projects until until our court case is resolved.
Redmond says when Canada approves projects without consulting First Nations, they ignore critical issues.
As Indian people with treaty, non-treaty bans, we need to stand together to fight against this oppression, because when we have boil advisory issues on the reserves, lack of housing, overcrowding, living in poverty, third world poverty, why across the road are these industries coming in making billions of dollars across from our communities? And using the resources of the land, traditional territories.
Whitecap Chief Darcy Bear says he is with Chief Redman. In an October 2024 letter to Chief Bear, Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Anandasangari said he had directed his officials to work with Whitecap on a reconciliation treaty.
To sit down with us and co-develop a parity model, and it's going to talk about compensation so you can take that to cabinet, and that is yet to happen. And that letter was from October 17th of 2024, and no action to date. And so from our perspective, Canada's been acting in bad faith.
Bear says Whitecap filed its own claim in December, citing a breach of Crown honor. Both nations want Canada to issue an apology for their failure to uphold their promises and to act in good faith going forward. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
The University of Ottawa recently announced that tuition will be free to Algonquin students. But how is the university determining who qualifies as Algonquin is a controversial topic in Ontario. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
Taryn Johnson is the Director of Indigenous Affairs at the University of Ottawa. She's pleased to share the news of a great initiative.
I actually think it's far overdue for institutions in this country to be having these acts of reconciliation towards the communities, in particular the communities that the institution operates on. The students feel more welcome on campus. The community feels respected. It's an homage that we owe the Algonquin people, since we're on their unceded territory, to offer their students the opportunity to come here free of tuition.
Johnson, who is Anishinaabe from Georgina Island First Nation, says the waiver is a large part of the university's indigenization plan. Last year, the university unveiled a 77-foot living wall that features over 8,000 plants. Since then, there's been more art added on the campus. Johnson says the latest initiative took a lot of collaboration and planning behind the scenes. Those eligible must be from one of the federally recognized Algonquin communities in Ontario and Quebec.
There's 10 Algonquin communities that are eligible for the tuition waiver. We did that through the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation Tribal Council, the Algonquin Nation Secretariat, and Pikangikum. The 10 communities were identified by them, and so what happens is the students apply as usual through their post-secondary funding, and then the band offices will send us the lists of eligible students, and they will receive the waiver.
According to Johnson, the university is also looking at offering more programs.
We're working on expanding our Institute of Indigenous Research and Studies. Right now, Indigenous Studies is only offering for undergraduate studies. We'd like to move that into graduate studies. And we like to develop some micro programs so there's more accessibility for communities to be able to access university-level programming without having to be full-time students.
Eligible students can apply now for a September start, but they must be enrolled in an undergraduate, master's, or doctoral program of study. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
One Mi'kmaq youth's dream has come true. That story and more after the break. Welcome back. This past week, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The issue was front and center as National Red Dress Day events took place across the country. And at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg, a celebration was held for the launch of a book and an update to the MMIWG exhibit. APTN's T.R. Wheatley has more.
The landfill is our home while we lay alone, waiting for them to find us in the garbage dump. Someone put me here. For some reasons, I don't know why.
Cambria Harris, oldest daughter of Morgan Harris, one of 4 First Nations women killed by a serial killer in 2022, reads her poem, Bring Me Home, at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Her poem is featured in Red Dress, Art, Action, and the Power of Presence. It was edited by Jamie Blackmore-Sett and launched in Winnipeg this past week. The book was written during the height of the search of the landfill movement in Winnipeg.
For her to bring all these women of all groups of diversity and from all walks of life, from community to leadership to directly impacted family members, is absolutely amazing. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing to bring us all together and speak about these kind of injustices, but also pay tribute to our women in a beautiful way.
On top of sharing the book with this crowd, an unveiling of an updated MMIWG exhibition in the CMHR. Since the doors opened here, a gloomy forest with empty dresses set the scene. Now, a star blanket draws you in. At the center, a white dress. Blackmore-Sett says the design represents Sky Woman and the creation story.
When she came down from the stars, she put mud on the turtle's back and put seeds in that mud, and she danced until everything was created.
First Nation artist Casey Adams also helped with the design, saying it's about reclaiming power as Indigenous women.
Where do we go next? How do we start the healing process? But she also wanted to ground the conversation back to the knowledge that our ancestors shared, the teachings of the earth, the air, nibe, water, and fire.
Aisha Khan is the CEO here. She said while the CMHR is always free for Indigenous patrons, there's also one day a month dedicated to sharing the space with everyone for free.
We're free the first Sunday of every month, so this building is crowded with people until 5 p.m. And so many people engaged with that, with this exhibition.
So more people from Canada and the rest of the world can learn about the MMIWG issue and other complex tragedies. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Make-A-Wish Foundation made one Mi'kmaq youth's dreams come true 2 years after he received a kidney transplant. As Angel Moore reports, he's going on the trip of a lifetime.
That is Rowan Barry Francis. He is 9 years old, and he got his wish to take his family to Disney World in Orlando, Florida.
I was surprised. It's a full-on surprise. I didn't know what I was doing.
Rowan is a typical young boy and plays his favorite game, baseball, at the field in his community of the Eskasoni First Nation in Unamagi, Mi'kmaq for Cape Breton. But 2 years ago, Rowan's kidney went into failure, and he was on dialysis for 6 months. Sophie Francis is Rowan's mom and was in the process of donating her kidney, but Rowan became very sick and needed one immediately. An anonymous donor was a match.
When you get a kidney transplant, it's only a temporary fix. Eventually, Rowan's kidney might go into rejection, and then he'll have to do the process all over again. So they estimate around 10 to 15 years.
Rowan is happy to no longer be on dialysis.
I feel wonderful lucky. It took me 7 months to get a kidney, and I feel very lucky.
The wish was granted at the Elduek Art Centre in Sydney, Unama'ki. Rowan is taking his grandparents, Barry and Frederica Francis, to Disney World.
We want to thank Make-A-Wish Foundation for granting Rowan a wish. And it looks like we're going to have a lot of fun because Rowan is an amazing kid. And we have been through a long, long journey and a lot of stress. And we thank God for everything.
Rowan's wish was also sponsored by the seafood company Clearwater, which is 51% Mi'kmaq owned. Jerome Jones is a company representative and says Clearwater has supported Make-A-Wish for the last 20 years.
And it makes a difference. You know, something small gets something massive. So you can see from what he's looking like now with all his family, it's been a pleasure to be involved with.
The Francis family is close and often gather at the family home.
Well, that's an inquest without the widget.
Sophie says in Mi'kmaq that she's happy Rowan is well and he wants to share his journey, a journey that also means keeping himself healthy.
I have to stay on low sodium diet, and I got to take my medicine, my pills, and I have to do a lot of water, and it's kind of hard to do stuff when you're little like me.
Rowan is grateful for the support of his family and his community.
I gotta take care of that kidney, so I'll be fine.
According to the Kidney Foundation of Canada, 1 in 10 people in Canada have kidney disease, and over 3,000 people are waiting for a kidney transplant. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Eskasoni First Nation, Unama'ki, Nova Scotia.
Thank you. Good stuff, Rowan. You're quite the slugger there, too. A new home renovation show is airing on APTN, but with a twist. That story and more still to come. Starting on the East Coast, showers and 13 in Halifax, 9 with rain in Fredericton. -3 with snow in Kuujjuaq, 9 above in Nain. 18 with showers in Montreal, rain and 9 for Chibougamau. 13 in Sault Ste. Marie, 20 in Ottawa. Sun's out and 13 in Thunder Bay, showers and 16 in Sioux Lookout. 14 with rain in God's Lake, 13 and showers in Norway House. 23 with rain in Winnipeg, showers and 29 in Dauphin. 32 in Regina, 28 in Saskatoon. 17 in La Ronge and Buffalo Narrows. Cloudy across much of northern Alberta, 19 for High Level and Peace River. 20 in Edmonton, 30 in Medicine Hat. 15 with rain in Vancouver, 20 and cloudy in Kamloops. 14 with showers for Prince George and Smithers. 4 above in Old Crow, 11 in Whitehorse. 14 in Yellowknife, 3 with snow in Norman Wells. -4 and flurries in Sax Harbor, 1 below in Colville Lake. -6 in Chesterfield, 0 with flurries in Arviette. -11 in Resolute, 7 below with snow in Iqaluit. A new home renovation show has just launched on APTN. It combines culture with a modern twist. APTN's Tina House has the story.
What was once illegal is now a celebration of Indigenous culture in your home.
At Home is the latest TV series by executive producer and host Tamara Bell. Bell says that the show inspires creative ways to honor traditions and culture. And tonight, it's West Coast Night at the Vancouver Friendship Centre, and it's also a night to celebrate the launch of At Home.
Because in 1884 there was so much legislation around making items illegal for Indigenous people, the concept was to decolonize and reintroduce concepts and art and, because it's so healing into people's homes and people who are disenfranchised in some way, bringing it back into their heart.
And one of those featured on the show is Carrie Stonestand. She's an intergenerational residential school survivor who says she never had a lot of culture growing up in James Smith Cree First Nation in Saskatchewan. And what was once a crowded dining area / sewing room was completely transformed by Tamara and her team.
Bringing Cree culture into my home is huge.
At the beginning of the process, there's a dining room. Carrie was dealing with a space that was overwhelming. So this is not conducive to your crafting. No. And had few cultural elements. And what Carrie got was everything. Our exploration of Cree culture added great pride in all of its splendor.
I honestly think it's healing. When I first seen the buffalo, it was beautiful. I could see it right away, and it just catches your eye.
And back at the launch of At Home, we caught up with Marlene Ankerman, a residential school survivor who had her bedroom completely transformed.
It didn't feel like home. Very grateful. I didn't display anything of my culture in my home, any of my homes that I had before. And then they start bringing all of this stuff in, and I'm going, oh my God, I have to look at it every day. It was foreign to me. It was different.
Marissa Nahaney is hosting the event and says she's so excited to see this positive change for others with At Home.
Marlene Ankerman, a residential school survivor, she said it was one of the first times she's felt at home. Can you imagine what that would feel like in Canadian history, where we're not as welcomed, and now we have people having a sense of belonging?
It was so moving to witness Marlene. She was crying while we were filming. The release of getting rid of that shame from residential school, the release of discovering a part of who you are.
And as part of Tamara Bell's Haida tradition of potlatching, which means giving back to the community, honoring a significant event, tonight she is gifting these baskets to celebrate her new show, At Home, which airs on APTN on Mondays at 9 p.m. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
And before we go tonight, joining us as she always does on Friday is the host of Nouvelle Nationale, your weekly French news magazine, Kim Sullivan. Hi, Kim.
Hey, Dennis, we've got a great show. Some serious news, like an event for the Red Dress Day here in Montreal, and communities putting continued pressure on Quebec to protect the caribou. But we also have happy stories, like an experience of a lifetime for a young hockey team from Labrador. And we talked to the film producer of Metsimakush. His doc actually highlights a northern Quebec village on the way of becoming the first Inuit African community. That's tonight at 6:30 Eastern.
Good stuff. Thanks, Kim. You can catch her in a little more than a minute from now. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Friday. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Go Leafs, go Jets. Have a great night.